She's a former
Okay,
border patrol.
I think I saw her
Yeah,
book.
border patrol agent.
Oh, she
I gotta
was
talk to
on
her.
like
Okay,
Joe
yeah,
Walsh's show or something recently.
Yeah,
Um,
she was on with Kasim Rashid, I believe. She
yeah,
was on with
yeah.
quite a few people recently. Yeah.
She,
I've worked
awesome.
Yeah, I've worked with her for years since early on in the first Trump administration. That's how we
Oh,
met.
good.
Man, I got so much inside information from her, and like that just opens doors to ask the right questions. You know what I mean? So like that's
hmm
one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why, like, I have so many issues with CBP and ICE because I'm always coming at them with these questions that are, informed about the
Reasonable
brutality
question.
of that agency. The CBP is more violent than ICE, if you can imagine.
I
But
can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah, one of the things we keep seeing a lot of is, people are still pushing this idea that, these what these ICE agents are doing and that they don't look professional, right? That they're January Sixers, that they're just putting on the street. And, we have to push back on that a little bit because this is what ICE has always done. They've just been more covert about it, right? Um,
Yeah.
Mhm.
ICE
there's
has always been a racist organization.
Oh, absolutely. Racists love ICE. That's where they go.
And CBP, yeah, and
Right.
CBP has always been a racist organization. Like,
Basically, anything under DHS has been that way.
yeah.
The whole premise of DHS was, it was built on anti-Arab, anti-Muslim sentiments. So
hmm
it was racist from the beginning. So yeah,
Yeah.
so we Jen Bud and I, we get a lot of this. They're not real agents. They're January Sixers, and we push back on this because one, it's dangerous to assume that ICE agents weren't like this before. If you live in a city like I do in Houston, right, with a very large Latino community and a very large undocumented population, they're here. They're here all the time. They're just more covert about it. And what it highlights is that most of these arrests by ICE are nonviolent situations, right? They're typically not what we're seeing right now. What you're seeing right now is the result of the $200 million they set aside at the beginning of the Trump administration, literally for propaganda, to film the raids, to make it look like mini documentaries. They're making commercials out of them, and then the idea that the administration is putting the idea in agents' head that they're immune, like qualified immunity is going to protect them. The truth is qualified immunity doesn't protect anybody once you violated someone's rights.
hmm
So qualified, they're not immune to anything. Um, and then the other thing that makes this situation seem so much more extreme is the force multiplier that all the thousands of agents from other agencies are providing. Over 1,000 local and state law enforcement agencies are participating in the 287G program. So these force multipliers make for a more violent situation. And the administration wants to see the violence. They want to see black and brown people suffering. They're getting
hmm
off on this, and it's obvious. They laugh at it, they make jokes. They're entertained by this. And when you look at all the white nationalists in the White House, then it starts to make sense. There are literally like almost 3 dozen people with ties or have said things that are either white nationalist, Nazi, or Christian nationalist in nature in the White
Yeah,
House. And that's scary. That's scary to me.
that
So
is.
yeah, so like in the note that we were discussing is, I tell people that we have to stop pretending that ICE hasn't been terrorizing Latino communities since it was created in '03, because the only difference now is the force multiplier that other federal agencies and more than 1,000 local state law enforcement agencies are providing. So, and I said otherwise, they're operating under the same rules and policies as before. And that's the truth. They're using administrative warrants, trying to pass them off as real warrants. They're, lying about, like, when you see an ICE agent with a vest on that says police. See what I'm saying? They're manipulating the public because they're not police. Federal
Yeah.
agents don't have policing power, therefore not police, right? Um, but they do that intentionally. And I've seen cases where, Houston cops, I've seen it in Austin too, where they were like, dude, you can't wear that because you're not police. And they'll take it off if a cop says something. I've seen cops in Houston tell ICE agents that, they need to fuck off with their administrative warrant. They're beating on somebody's door, somebody calls the cops, cops show up, look at the paper, they're like, this isn't a judicial warrant, you need to go.
Yeah,
This doesn't give you access, and I've seen that. The thing is like here in Houston, for example, officially, the HPD chief and the mayor have said that HPD is not going to be working with ICE. And on paper, they're not. But you have officers in HPD who are pulling people over at traffic stops or responding, say, to a domestic disturbance call, and then calling ICE on the victims or, the person getting a
that's so
ticket.
fucked up.
Right. And like they're acting, it seems like they're acting on their own, outside of
Yeah.
policy. And like there's a lot of trying to figure out what HPD cops are doing around here. But when you look at how they operate in Texas, even in a progressive city like Houston, they're still doing it covertly, like they did before. We're not seeing this violence and this aggression and this militarized nonsense that we're seeing in Chicago because that's intentional, to make Chicago look like that, to make, some war zone in Portland, calling Portland a war zone,
That's stupid.
Yeah.
was pretty funny.
What a
So
dumb thing to say.
right. So essentially, my point of this whole thing with ICE is that if we continue to pretend that they're somehow worse under Trump, then the best we can look forward to is going back to what they were before this Trump administration, and that's just an
Yeah.
equally violent,
Not
just more
acceptable.
more covert thing, which means we're not moving forward. In one sense, I'm glad that people are seeing what ICE is doing like this because that force multiplier, the media they put around it, all they did was amplify what ICE does and make it apparent, buddy. And we knew right away, once they were spending $200 million, that the media was going to latch on to all that footage and use it, and they are,
Yeah.
hmm
to continue driving these narratives. So, yeah, I mean, it is dangerous. I think we need to acknowledge that, you know, I'm from the camp that is beyond abolish ICE. I think we should abolish Homeland Security altogether.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
Mhm.
You're in the right
this
camp.
whole right, yeah, Homeland Security, like the Patriot Act, the Homeland Security Act, all that stuff needs to go. There are so many different policies that are really, I don't know, none of us are safe anymore from DHS, right?
No,
They can document all our data. They could be watching this right now. You know what I'm
they,
saying? So
they might be.
it's
And
creepy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I've gotten some backlash from those agencies. I post publicly about it to let my readers know what's going on. But yeah, like DHS taking me off their press list. They put me back on it because they probably saw my social media post. See what I mean? Like I didn't file a
Oh,
complaint with them. I
yeah,
posted it on social media when I found out, and then like 2 days later, suddenly I'm back on the thing, and I'm like,
oops.
somebody's reading my
Yeah.
social media. You know what I mean?
good.
So
Political
I
pressure.
wasn't gonna
See,
file. I wasn't gonna file a complaint. I could just do an RSS feed from the website and still get all the stuff. I didn't
yeah,
care.
do it for
Yeah.
free and get it
Right.
done real quick and let your subs know because personal pressure and social pressure work, and we need to stop being afraid to use it. Um,
Yeah.
all
I go gonzo on them all the time. I'll be like, I'm asking them this, they're not answering. So I'll post that all over the social media and tag
oh,
them to let everybody know.
just wait till you see what I'm gonna be putting out a post here soon on a FOIA request that I'm putting together for
Man,
the
good luck with that.
Department of Defense about the two gentlemen who were brought back to their home countries of Ecuador and Colombia after being illegally extrajudicially bombed by the U.S. Outside Venezuela and off of the coast of
Mhm.
Venezuela. The two gentlemen who, we took on board a Navy vessel who would be considered enemy combatants and then didn't treat them as though they were detainees or
Right.
enemy combatants in any way. I'd like to know what happened to them. I'd like to know their medical status. I'd like to know what state they were treated in. And if we can just put it on our social media and it works better than fucking actually filing the FOIA request, then
Yeah.
maybe the FOIA request system is broken and we just need to update that. Instead of tearing it down, we just fix it and replace it and don't do something stupid like the
Mhm.
Republicans want to do. All that to say is, welcome everyone. It's the Sick of This Show. And it's Notes of the Week with Nick Paro and Walter Rhein, and our special guests today, Arturo Dominguez. You are someone who I've seen, Arturo, blow up. I was talking about this a little bit before the show with you, is I've seen you blow up around me on Substack. I had never heard of you before. But I started seeing your name everywhere. And in the last few weeks, you are just all over the place. So could you introduce yourself real quick to anyone who may not know who you are, with us right now, and for the rewatch for anyone who may watch it after, um,
Sure.
to tell everyone who you are, because we're doing notes for the week. You've already introduced your note, and I want to talk about it, and get into it. So Arturo, if you could introduce yourself, and Walter, do you want to take it away after there and start going into it?
All right. Yeah. I'm Arturo Dominguez. You can say Arturo Dominguez if you can't roll your R's. um,
Apologies.
no, it's fine, man. You can say it however you want. I'm cool with that. But yeah, I run the decolonized journalism newsletter here on Substack. I'm also the founder and editor in chief of the Antagonist magazine on Medium and at antagonistmag.com, and I'm also trying to bring it here in some way. Still working out the kinks on that. But aside from that, I mean, I've been published in, various outlets. I do a lot of work for Unicorn Riot, mostly investigative journalism type stuff. Um, digging into ICE and stuff. There's a lot of my work is there. And then I did a lot of work for Latino Rebels. All that work is in the Library of Congress, something I'm kind of proud of. There's about 100 articles there on Cuba and a lot of Latino related stuff, Latin American stuff. Yeah, and basically everything I do, I'm an independent journalist, and I do everything from a human rights standpoint. Because in that, I used to be a DHS contractor. I'll try to be brief here. Had a stroke in 2014. Started taking journalism classes because I needed a career shift, and in those classes, there's a lot of emphasis on picking your narrative for a story, and I take issue with that because a lot of times you see narratives that are chosen in Western media, U.S. media, that don't provide full context for things. So, when you're talking about Venezuela, for example, the narrative for Venezuela is, Maduro dictator, human rights abuses, this, all these bad things. Um, but in the end of the day, they can't charge him with any of it because none of it is necessarily true. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
don't like the guy. I don't like the dude, and he has done some shady stuff. But a lot of what the U.S. is, accuses Venezuela of is just not true. So yeah, there's that. That's the part of the narrative stuff that you don't see in my work. Whether it's something I agree with or not, like Malay winning all these electoral seats in the legislature yesterday, not the way I would like to have seen it go, but I reported on it anyway. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna downplay the fact that the far right won in Argentina yesterday, and that is bothersome to me. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's who I am, man. I'm proud to be here. Lucky, glad to have with you guys. Do a lot of stuff with Walter. Walter's cool as hell, and finally glad to meet you, Nick. This is awesome.
It's great to meet you. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here, Arturo. And as I said, it's such a relief to have your content on Substack. I'm just like, oh, I can just believe this, and he's like, I will do. Like at this point, I've got too much fact check as an instinct, but it's sort of like,
Right.
oh, here's what's really going on, and it's just a relief. It's so much fun to have these wonderful independent journalists. I want to mention a note that you put out today, which I thought was really important. I saw it, and it was just somebody had written some really violent comment. I
Oh,
think you'd said it'll be nice to see ICE held accountable, and somebody put a violent comment on there. And this is just such an important point because I don't even like those. I mean, I don't, when I see a comment like that, I don't like it. A lot of times I'll write back, it's like, everybody remember, we have to always say, you know, everything we do is peaceful and lawful. That's our side. And I know that like, you got to tell people it's like when you're going through security at the airport, it's like, don't make jokes. It's like, I realize,
yeah.
you think, it's like, but as you were saying, people look at what we're posting here, and they're building a file on us. So that file needs to have a lot of us saying we're going to be peaceful. We're going to be law abiding.
Yeah,
But you
exactly.
suggested that one of the comments was a Fed.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Anytime somebody says, I can't wait till we start, firing squad or fucking hanging from trees or something like that about ICE agents, I'm like, dude, Fed. That's Fed behavior.
Yeah, don't
Like
say that.
that's how they fish for violent actors. They want to find somebody be like, hell yeah, brother, and it's like, no,
Mhm.
yeah, not here, bro, not
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I always respond with like, no, every single thing I say is peaceful and patriotic.
Yeah,
When people are like, oh, let's start the Civil War, let's go just shoot them. No, no,
mhm,
like
nope, nope.
literally the opposite of all the messages we put out all the time here. Like, we want to hold these
Yeah,
people accountable lawfully, like through
right,
a legal system that actually has punitive and restorative measures to it. Like, I want you to be able to recuperate from being a criminal and become part of society again. Like, I think it's ridiculous that a lot of people who are felons can't vote, things like that.
right,
Um, because most of those people are arrested often by Customs and Border Patrol or ICE and given trumped up charges and made to be felons so that they can't ever vote, so that they're
yeah,
automatically excluded from the civil and civic process in this country, so they don't have a real voice. So I agree totally with you on the idea that ICE is, and everyone who comes out from ICE who speaks out against it too, or CBP, is that they are racist organizations. They're
yeah,
fundamentally built on the idea of racism. Like, that's what they're there for. They're to ensure immigration from those people can't happen. And those people is a
yeah,
pretty nebulous those people group because, during World War II, it was Jewish people and people of color also, and disabled folks, and anyone who wasn't in America. There was the Japanese, it was the Chinese, it was anybody who we felt uncomfortable with because they weren't white. Um, we talk a lot about that here, is like getting over white supremacy and like how to push back on white supremacy in a lot of ways. So I'm glad you brought up that note. Because they are
yeah.
racist organizations.
yeah,
And that ultimate line too. It's like going back to the way it was because it's always been this bad. It's just we're seeing, and that's we got to just keep hammering that point because I feel that once the billionaires, because I feel we already are winning. I read an article the other day where they were talking about how people are already like, shit, he's like halfway through Project 2025 and it's almost over and it's not enough. He didn't do enough. It's been awful watching all this stuff from our side, but the resistance is holding. Everybody, the resistance is holding. And they know they're starting to get nervous now because they have committed a lot of crimes. And so yeah, like, but this idea, what we're going to see the billionaires do is be like, oh, okay, ha 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 ha. Oh, here's a raise, and they'll give us like 10%, back,
yeah,
and it'll be like, oh, we'll just go back to the way it was. They're like, no, no fucking way. That idea is gone. That ship has left. We have to completely reform our whole society. I was saying we need a new constitution written by a black woman. we got to completely change this up. And I think it's up to people like us to just keep pushing that narrative because the mass of the people are going to try and slide back into the rut that the billionaires give them, and they're going to sit there with putting mud on themselves. Oh, we're happy again, and we can't allow that to happen. We got an opportunity here, So that's what we
Yeah.
got to.
yeah,
That's what we got to do.
Yeah, and I think one
Yeah.
of those opportunities is abolish ICE, and
Hmm.
abolish CBP, and abolish DHS in general. Like, let's take it to the real idea: is abolish a organization that is rife with
mhm,
fraud, waste, and abuse. They're buying unnecessary equipment. They're buying planes. They are not putting officers through the
Yeah.
correct training. They're not
right,
teaching proper law enforcement tech, or like whatever they're supposed to be, paramilitary techniques. Like, there are rules that are supposed to happen. But there's just money going there and nobody's ever seeing it again. Like, it's
Yeah.
more than abolish ICE, it's abolish DHS and hold them
Yeah.
accountable for the crimes that they're committing, like
I
in
bet they
real
fail
time
their audit.
too. Oh
I bet
yeah,
they're
we
going to
need to
fail their
audit the
audit.
fuck
Yeah.
out of them.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, they're going to fail. They're going to, we don't know what happened to that. It's 30 billion. Yeah. That's the way it always happens.
I mean, we could sue them and then put reparations back to the people. Like that's
Yes.
a viable solution. We've talked about in this country reparations for slavery. We've talked about reparations for all sorts of things. We've talked about them at least, but we've never implemented a strategy that would actually be beneficial to not just those who were enslaved 100+ years ago, but also to those of us who are currently being enslaved by a system that owns you in pretty much every single way, and you have to work until you die. Like, to
Yeah.
me, that sounds like slavery. Um,
Well,
Even if they're
federal
telling
employees
us
aren't
they,
getting paid. Yeah.
yeah, federal employees aren't getting paid. I'm
Yeah.
concerned that veterans benefits are going to get cut here soon, and that our
Mm.
disability benefits are going to be on the chopping block because, fraud, waste, and abuse. Us
Yeah.
disabled people are just wasteful. Um,
Yeah. Oh
so
man. Yeah.
there's a lot of supremacy built into our structure, and I think
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
CBP is a
everywhere.
big piece of that. Can you talk on, like, from your experiences, because you have a very different set of experiences than I do in life. Um, from your experiences, especially in the Texas area, is how have interactions with CBP and or ICE or just DHS in general in the last year changed or been like just have they changed really or just been spread out in a much larger racial profiling effort than before?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely more spread out. Because you have what I mentioned earlier, the force multipliers of all these other federal agencies, because you have DEA and ATF agents, and none of those guys know immigration law. They don't know, so a lot of the haphazard nonsense you're seeing is that you got a lot of desk jockeys who are unqualified to be out in the street making arrests, suddenly handed a gun and go out there and do these, ICE raids, and they have no idea what they're doing. Um, and they're spread out all over the country. If you talk to Jen Budd, and she has contacts within CBP, a lot of the border agents that are down there, you see John Cornyn bragging about, oh, we got 18,000 more border agents under Trump. I'm not so sure that's true. And additionally, most of the border agents are out doing raids with ICE. So there's this idea right now that migrants are just walking across the border, no problem. And the few that they're reporting that are getting caught are just that, a few, because there aren't many agents. And even with the military at the border, the military doesn't have the authority to take a migrant into custody. They have to, like, detain them, call a border agent to come get them. So, there's this idea that the border is just wide open right now. And what scares me is that rumor's starting to spread in the Latino community in Spanish. And once it starts spreading in Spanish, it goes to Latin America. And once that
Uh,
rumor starts to spread, if it takes off like wildfire, you're going to start seeing caravans again. Um,
Which is what they
so you
want
got to,
because they want to
there's a
manufacture a crisis.
right, right, and that's the thing. The way, okay, these enforcement only policies at the border that even Biden put into place with these restrictions on asylum and stuff, and like just forcing millions of people. Like Biden, I think turned away 3.5 million people at the border, deported close to like another 1.5 million. So some pretty big numbers. When you make it harder for them to come in through a legal way, they'll find an alternative. And that
Yeah.
typically that alternative will push them through the desert, through mountain ranges, and all that stuff. And a lot of times they die. It's extremely dangerous. There are people estimate there are tens of thousands of bodies along the border that haven't been recovered yet. Some estimate
Mm.
as high as hundreds of thousands. And either number seems feasible to me. And the way these enforcement only policies work by basically locking down the border, that's what you're doing. You're forcing people through alternate routes, and it makes it more dangerous. And I have no doubt in my mind that if the border is quote unquote wide open, that's where it's wide open in those remote areas.
Mhm.
Because the more highly visible areas, you're gonna see agents, right? Because that
Yeah.
those are gonna be top hot spots. But in the more remote areas, I imagine that's where the wide open border is right now, and that's what's scary because by creating that and forcing them to go through these other routes, now you have more known gotaways. And like you said, they'll point to that and be like, see, look how much of a problem this is, and push for more measures and more measures. When the reality is the solution is to have a more efficient asylum system that actually works, you know?
Yeah. Like there are solutions to these problems. We just don't want to do them because
Right.
they're not quote easy and they don't make right wingers happy. Like that's we got to stop pretending that we need to make right wingers happy in our solutions to like they don't have good ideas because they're regressive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we are the conservatives and the progressives. Like I am proud to be a conservative and a progressive because they're not opposites on the spectrum.
Yeah.
That's they're not alternative of each other. Regressive is opposite of progressive, which is what the Republicans are. And that's what racist policies are too. I do want to add an additional group that is being part of the force multiplier, and it's something that Melissa Corrigan and I have talked about. It is the DoD has a open
Oh,
policy to promote during the final 180 days of your federal contract while you're still a federal officer, federally contracted in the armed services, where you are not allowed to do any sort of policing or law enforcement activity in the states unless the Insurrection Act has been invoked and posse comitatus has been revoked in a lot of ways, is during the final 180 days of your federal service contract in the armed forces, the DoD is now promoting for the first time ever ICE as and any agency. They never promote any agency. They never favor any group. They're now openly promoting during the 180 days of your final piece of your contract, you can join ICE and learn how to be an ICE officer
Oh,
and do the job and get on the job training, which means there's a reason why a lot of these guys are wearing masks. Is because if they're service members,
yeah.
that's against the law, and that's punishable by UCMJ, and that's punishable both inside and outside of the uh, military judicial system. And accountability comes, y'all, and we're gonna
yeah.
find out who you are. We're gonna figure out who you are and hold you accountable, and we can do it in real time. That's the cool thing about the internet and the fact that your
Yeah.
service contract is public record. You done fucked up, bros. Like, and I know
Yeah.
it's bros who are doing it. You done fucked up, bros. We're gonna find you and we're gonna prosecute you and we're gonna hold you
Yeah.
accountable because that's what we do. That's what we're gonna try and encourage
Yeah.
everybody to start doing. Peacefully and
Yeah.
patriotically, you can hold people
Yes.
accountable.
Yeah. And the messaging aspect of this is so important. I really wish the left, because it's like exactly what you said. They're deliberately incompetent. The right is. They're deliberately incompetent because they want that endless flow of money. And the other thing they want is the endless flow of little bodies that they can traffic. Because as Arturo says, these people are just disappearing. And we already know, I've been reading Virginia Giuffre's novel, and it's heartbreaking. And we just know the extent to which these powerful people are just gathering up young kids. Make that part of the message. I mean, the reason the right is so focused on the border is because they want to abduct these innocent children and rape them. And that's part of this issue too, and in addition to them just dying as they try to cross, the utter inhumanity of it. We often just let the most powerful arguments just kind of drop off unstated, and that's why we keep losing, I think.
Yeah, the thing that you mentioned, children, really gets me because, I've been trying to track what's happening with all
Yeah.
these kids. And, during the first Trump administration, family separations were a big deal, right? Understandably so. This time around, they're not necessarily as big of a deal, but they're still happening in reverse. So, you know, a couple months ago, Venezuela accused DHS of kidnapping 18 Venezuelan kids. And so I started digging in, asking questions in Venezuela. Who are these kids? I'm trying to, it's Maduro's government propaganda. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You gotta
You
find
always
some.
have to question.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm all for defending Venezuela right now, given the circumstances. But when it comes to
Yeah.
Nicolas Maduro, I'm kind of on. Anyway, so I started looking into it, and it turns out 18 parents were deported to Venezuela without their kids. And I started asking about it, and ICE apparently separated these families, took the kids, and put them in to the office of refugee resettlement, which is run by Health and Human Services, as unaccompanied minors,
Yeah.
and their parents were being taken in to a detention center and then deported to Venezuela. So they put them in there as unaccompanied minors, intentionally create confusion, hold these kids for 30 to 45 days before they decide to return them to their parents for no other reason than to be cruel. So, like, I start asking DHS about these 18 kids. I had a list of names that I got. Man, I talked to some of the parents in Venezuela, through WhatsApp. And I sent them a list of names and I'm like, dude, where are these kids? Like, these kids are like legit missing. And they refused to answer me. And I was hounding them and hounding them and hounding them. And 2 days later, all of the kids were flown to Venezuela. I don't
Good.
know that it
Good
was
work,
me that
Arturo.
did that, but if it was me and 100 other people putting pressure on them about where are these kids, then what? So be it. One of the mothers thanked me. I told her I didn't do anything. I just started asking questions, and
Oh
like
my
I've wrote
God.
about it
Yeah.
several times because I'm having a real issue with this, like trying to track these kids. They won't give you any information. A lot of the data that they can normally provide just isn't there under this administration. And all these, CBP data logs and stuff are just so generalized, it's hard to tell which kids are the accompanied minors. You just have a number and there's no telling where they're at. They're, rolling around in the foster system because of, the whole Office of Refugee Resettlement runs that. And it's for no reason, like I said, other than just to be cruel. And it
Yeah.
blows me away that it just people aren't reporting it. It really really sticks me, man. But again, it's a story I stay on, and I haven't reported anything recently because I haven't found anything, and it really scares me about a lot of these kids.
Ugh. And that's that book, these stories of child abuse, and I was, like I said, I was reading Virginia's book, and it's just, you know, you just have to force yourself to read it to understand the reality of what's going on in this country, because so much of what happened to her, I mean, we think of it as, the little St. James Island and having it being distant, but so much of that mechanism for abusing kids is alive and well, and I guarantee it's alive and well across the street from where, all of you who are watching. It's all around. It's happening all around. We got this code of silence about this. And even in cases where you say, "This guy did this to me," people don't do a damn thing. And Arturo's example is perfect because if you speak and you speak and you speak and you speak, it'll happen. Good things will get it fixed. But it's just this code of silence is what we have to resist. And falling into the narratives that we're pressured to adopt is what we have to resist, because these horrible things are happening. And once we get people to be awakened to that, we will start finding our unity again, and we will take our first steps on the path to decency, which we are, and we're a long way from that goal right now.
Yeah, it just reminded me of like that talk we had a couple weeks ago with Shane.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
were talking about the kids in CPS custody here in Texas, how they're housed in motels and
Yeah.
targets for trafficking. They disappear all the time. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's almost like a farm system,
Yeah.
whether intentionally or not. That's what it is right
Yes.
now.
I think it's
And
intentional.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think so
it
too.
is.
I think so too. I think so too. So
There's a
yeah,
lot.
it's just scary how little we concern ourselves with child safety. You know,
Yes.
it really is. It really is.
Yeah, like one of the things too is like just child court in general in the US is a huge place for trafficking. And I think we need to acknowledge that and enabling abuse and a lot of other things. But before we get to that, I'm not going to spend very much time on this response for a second, but I am going to respond to someone in the chat. Ted Charles, thank you for asking a question in the chat. No, I'm not going to respond to it because one, I looked at your profile. You advocate very openly for violence, and we don't. So, no, I do not agree with the premise of your question. Is violence is not the answer, and the assumption that nonviolence to work your opponent must have a conscience, the United States has done. I think that's fucking bullshit. because if the United States didn't have a conscience, why would we be speaking? Like, I'm part of the United States. I'm a prior service member. I'm a veteran. I'm a combat vet. I did all the things. My parents have, my family has done all the things. Like, I vote every single time. I'm pretty sure I'm part of the conscience of America too. So shut the fuck up. Like, thanks. No thanks. Anyway, moving on from
Have a nice day.
yeah, have a nice day. I'm not going to boot you. If you want to stay, have fun, man. I'm just letting you know, I don't advocate for violence in any way, and your premise is flawed.
Nope.
So we're just
It's
not
only the
going to
right.
talk onto it.
Only the political right advocates for that, not us. The left is reasonable. I keep saying
Mhm.
that, and it's just a fact.
Can we then? I think maybe this is a good chance for Walter. Do you want to talk your note about
Ah,
reasonable? And I'll drop it in
yes,
the chat for everybody.
I was responding to a lot of things, and it ties into this part of controlling the narrative, because we've been seeing it was last week's the Daily Whatever, and they were talking about how I call him Skeevy Banana. So you can figure out who it is. But he's been out sitting there saying the guy can run for it. And I don't say the other guy, the Nepo baby can run for a third term. And I'm just responding, look, when they say that, we call that treason. That's treason. The Constitution says 2 terms. It's not a complicated one. It's not like it's freedom of speech, which, there's all these kind of gray areas and complexity. It's got the number 2. It says the number 2. If you're in a political office and you're saying, I'm going to run for 3, you're a fucking traitor to this country and you're a traitor to the Constitution, and that's it. But the problem is, I'm getting all these people who are like, well, this is the actual definition of treason. And they start going in. It's like, look, and this is an issue with the left. It's like, we have to control the narrative. Our objective here is to get the Republicans to have to say, well, no, it's not treason. So we need to repeat it and repeat it until the word treason, because the word no, nobody even hears. All we then hear is the Republicans going treason, treason, treason. But by default, the left tends to just kind of retreat from this, like, well, let's try and like keep him off the ballot, and let's try it. And they have all these kind of just weak responses. It's fucking treason. He is, if you are blatantly defying your oath to the Constitution, his oath was to uphold the Constitution. If he's saying he's going to run right over that and not abide by it, he is making the country weaker because he is undermining our rule of law and our government, makes him a traitor. That's it. So say that. And it's like, keep this in mind whenever you see these arguments or these statements about, oh, he's thinking about running for a third term, say that is treason. I wrote an article about it. It was shared on this conservative webpage. That article has over 1,000 comments right now. And that's actually interesting because I've been reading some of the comments and they're like, well, what about FDR? He ran for 4 terms. That was before the 22nd Amendment, you dumbasses. And then they brought up Obama. So I actually looked into that, and there was a moment when they asked, like some probably right-wing news source asked him, and he's like, no, I'm constitutionally prohibited from running a third term. So he just flat out, and then he's like, I probably would win, but I'm constitutionally prohibited. And that's an indication too, how we're held to such a high standard, because he just makes like let's take like some of the edge off this conversation by making a little joke, even though he twice said it's constitutionally prohibited. But now, all these years later, the right jumps on that. They misrepresent it. They act like he claimed it, and that justifies their claiming for it. It's treason to run for 3 terms. Simple. It says 2. And, and then they talk about 2, like they're going to say, oh, well, maybe they're going to say it has to be 2 consecutive terms. No, bullshit. That's treason. It says 2. So just keep calling it treason. Don't abide by them normalizing this idea that he could run for 3 terms, because that's treason.
It's also anti-constitutional. Like, it's
Yeah.
in the Constitution that you
Yeah.
cannot do it. So by doing it, you are anti-constitutional. So fuck off, Republicans. You're just anti-constitutional fucks. We don't hold back on this show. So Arturo, I'm going to try and say your name right. I do not do
That's
good
fine.
with Spanish. I'm sorry, my friend.
But
I've always had a hard time learning Spanish.
No, not too real.
Is we get into it pretty vocally sometimes on how much we hate these people.
Oh,
And
he's
the
used to that from
messaging.
me. Yeah.
Good. I'm
Apologize,
glad.
Arturo. Did I?
Because
oh,
I
dude.
always glance over. I like to get a smile on Arturo's face. That makes my day.
You should hear us around my house, man.
Oh, good.
We're sailors around here, so yeah, it's all
Okay.
good. And that's how
Let me
I
add one more
talk
point
too.
there.
So,
I want to add one more point. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say when I'm on like a national show or something like that, I'll say shit or something, and I'm like, oh, sorry, but it always happens. But no, there's a thing, what you mentioned right now, and a lot of it has to do with messaging, right? Like instead
Mhm.
of by not calling it treason, right? So like Republicans, like uh, what Walter says, they have the rote messaging, right? Just
Mhm.
repetitive, repetitive, repetitive. That messaging doesn't just impact the voters, it also they're politicking to judges. They're swinging,
Mm,
they're tainting juries, like the
mm,
cops do when they take somebody into custody and then they'll go on the news and make the person sound as guilty as possible before they've even been arraigned or had their day in court. That's you're tainting a jury with that,
yeah,
doing that. Whether the guy's
yeah,
guilty or not, you're tainting the jury with that. And that's
yeah.
essentially what Republicans do with their rote messaging, right? They pound it in there, pound it in there, pound it in there, and if there's not a loud enough counter message,
We
then
lose.
those who are making the decision are only hearing one side of the conversation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's the same problem we have with
Mhm.
trans issues. That's the same problem we have with immigration. That's the same problem we have with policing. They're louder, therefore they're heard, and the justice system rules in their favor, and that's white supremacy, man, because that's
Yep.
kind of where all that comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that all these loud voices against progress are mostly racist white people, and
Mhm.
that's who gets heard, that's who gets amplified, and it's weird because if we were to stick to that kind of messaging, then maybe
Yes.
we can influence more people,
Yeah.
as conservatives do.
And I will say, and that's up to everybody here. Just change it because so many of the comments I get were these kind of like, well, let's not go there. It's like we have to go there. That's where the fight is. The fight is right there. But then another example that I saw, the last thing I want to add, is I saw a news story. I think it was just on Yahoo, so it's not like it's a real source. But it said on there, it's like he's not going to run either for vice president. It's like if you've run 2 terms, you are ineligible to be vice president. You can't even post that shit. And it's so disturbing to see that our journalism has descended to this level that's so low that people don't even fucking know. And that's adding to their, as Arturo was saying, their constant barrage of just rote conditioning that just makes the people of the United States misunderstand the laws of our nation. It is up to us to explain it. Go and do the research, and then if you have a question, ask me, ask Arturo, ask Nick. We'll do our best to either, if we know the answer, tell you or find it. But we have to be forceful in our messaging. And yeah, we just can't allow this talk about 3 terms because that's just complete treason, complete it's completely anti constitutional. We need to start saying those words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
I was gonna say when one I just wanted to mention this when Steve Bannon invoked the words divine providence.
Yeah.
Oh
Those are the
God.
words that are used to define manifest destiny. Manifest
Yeah.
destiny is divine providence. That's where that came from. And as soon as I heard those words, I'm like, these guys are really going back to try to
Yep.
decolonize. And
Yeah.
I mean that's what they're trying to go back to. It's crazy. Especially with Latin America. That's what it looks like. Bunch of
Yeah.
colonizers.
Yeah. And well, I think they want to go back even further, like more Magna Carta, more like old Israel
Emperor
bullshit.
Nero.
Emperor
Yeah.
Nero, yeah, like pre
Fucking great.
civilized feudalism is
Stone
basically
tools.
where they
Yeah. They want us
want
all
us
to
to
have
be.
stone tools. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that's fuck them. I like
Mhm.
technology. I like nice things. Like,
Yeah,
can we
me
keep
too.
making nice things that don't suck and want to kill us? That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Like
It's
vaccines.
like
I kind of like
showering
those.
every like showering every day. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I like my kid. I
Oh,
like knowing my kids are going to be alive by the time they're 18 because they're well vaccinated and healthy and they have good food
Bronte.
choices and they have all sorts of stuff. Oh, bring back the Bronze Age. That's a lot of word bees to say.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
But no, I totally agree. We need to remind, I think we do need to go there and remind people exactly what the Constitution really does say so that
Whew.
these people can't make fake narratives because the real narrative is the Constitution. And
yeah.
we can just talk about it. We can just speak on what's on the Constitution and say, no, this violates the Constitution here, here, and here. It doesn't take a constitutional scholar or a constitutional lawyer to read and understand the Constitution.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
It does
Well,
have some old language that needs to be
yeah.
updated. But like we can read it and just be like, hey, y'all, this is what it actually says. Here's where your rights are being violated. And this is how they're violating them in like
Yeah.
5 words. Keep it simple.
Yep. And we have to come up with the responses to their false narratives too. So it's really important for us to talk it through. And for all the people watching, that's why it's really important for you to say, hey, I'm seeing this argument so that we're prepared, And then I talk to the candidates I interview and tell them so they're prepared with these arguments too. We need something that's sung, but you're right. It's got to be really quick, a good response that just completely buries it. Accusing your opponent of treason is pretty effective. That shuts them up usually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prove me you're not treasonous. Like, just call them Benedict Arnold. Like, bring back treasonous names that they don't want to be associated with and just
Ugh.
call them that. Because if anybody remembers anything from their U.S. history as a child, they probably know Benedict Arnold's name. Like,
Or watch America, the motion picture, if you forgot who he is. They depict him as a werewolf. Did you see that? Go watch America, the motion picture. It's kind of funny.
oh my God. Wait,
Based on real history. Yeah.
is that the animated TV series
Yeah.
that's like
So one where
super
George
like,
Washington has arm chainsaws that he flings out like this.
oh yeah, and they like just drinking all the time and
yeah,
yes, I
Paul
have
Revere.
seen
Well,
part of
that's because it's Sam Adams. Sam Adams is a drunk like a frat boy, and Paul Revere he's a centaur that turns into like RoboCop.
I've seen parts of it, but I need to go back and watch.
It's hard to watch all at
this.
once, but it's pretty funny in bits. Yeah.
And so I want to go into my note here towards the end because mine fits in with what Walter you were saying, but also with my fears on what can be happening towards the military too, and how it can be used in say conjunction with DHS and ICE as we start getting towards privatization efforts. Is so I'll drop my note in the chat, and don't worry, everyone. After the show in the post show notes, we will be dropping the we will
Links
be
in the replay.
dropping the links in the post show notes so everybody can read, share, like all of the other pieces. Who is
Yeah, please share them. Please share
hold on,
them.
who is the 9/11 conspiracist in our chat?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Bob the Free Radical. And now for something completely different. No airliner ever flown could have crashed in the manner that was alleged. But
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I'm gonna block you, dude. Sorry, bro. 9/11 killed a lot of people and then started a huge war
Yeah.
that killed a lot of other people.
Not what
Like,
we need. Yeah.
not what we need, dude. White supremacist, goodbye. Thanks. Thanks for pointing that out. Rachel, I appreciate you in the chat.
Thanks, Rachel.
Block. We don't fuck around with tinfoil hat people.
Yeah.
It's not a conspiracy for certain things because there's truth in them. But 9/11 is like, let's not fucking let's not fucking do that.
We got enough.
There's other things that are much more pressing than what happened on 9/11 right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. If you don't know Rachel Hendricks, you should follow her. She's got some really cool stuff. She's a great writer. She has some really cool pieces about, I think it was deconstructing some MAGA stuff within or around family. And so we should all definitely go subscribe to her work. She's in the chat. Click on her name and you can all subscribe to her.
Absolutely. Bring around some talks on her.
But for my note side was, mine's from 3 days ago. It was from over the weekend. Was New York Times is identifying Timothy Mellon, reclusive heir to the Mellon fortune and major donor to Donald Trump, as the anonymous donor of the $130 million accepted by the Pentagon to pay U.S. service members. Instead of doing their constitutionally mandated jobs to fund our government and pay our military, Republicans are privatizing it instead. Rachel's a writer, just to correct, so that it's on record. And so, yeah. So this weekend, known Epstein affiliate, payer or purveyor and payer of Epstein related things, Timothy Mellon donated I put that in quotes, donate, bribed the military with $130 million to
Mm.
pay federal service members, which is a violation of the law. It's a very, very specifically good law for a reason. And yes, it was obviously paid to be a spectacle. It was obviously meant to inflame. It was also meant to normalize the idea that private donations for the military to specifically pay service members. I'm talking specifically paying service members. The reason we do not specifically pay service members by any means outside of federally approved and vetted funds for public funding is so that the military always, the service members always know who their real boss is and who they're solely responsible to, the person who pays them. Soldiers are and service members always, throughout all of history, are solely responsible to the people that pay them, not anything else, not the ones that provide extra equipment, not the ones that provide all the other stuff. But if you're paying their personal salary, you are turning the military into a mercenary force. And it is no longer a military owned by the government. It is mercenaries out for rent. And yes, what was given, what the bribe that was provided paid a third of a day's salary. Maybe it paid $100 across the whole board, basically per service member. That number is not the fucking point. The point is, in a month from now, when the government is still shut down and that number has gone from a third of a day to a month's salary, the military is no longer funded by the people and is funded privately, making it a mercenary force that will answer to the billionaires who pay them, who will then contract them specifically to DHS or other groups and paid for by Army, brought to you by Palantir, will be a thing where Peter Thiel gets to tell the military, hey, we have predictively profiled this entire community in Houston, Texas. Go arrest every single one of them, bust down all their doors, or even better yet, just drop a bomb. Because ICE bought fucking weapon systems, guided missile systems. The weapon systems they purchased are to terrorize and kill people. Guided missile systems. So no, I told people in response to this and other things was, I will not come down about this. This is just the beginning. I'm sick of this shit. And
Mhm.
I'm Nick, and I'm sick of this shit where we get to normalize paying military members through private donations because that is how you turn it into a mercenary force that's then going to not just kill people on the borders of our country or in Venezuela or in open waters and who are just through extrajudicial killings because one tyrant says they can. Because
Mm.
now you're just going to get a bunch of billionaires who say, here, go where I want, and I want to purchase the 82nd Airborne for my own usage this weekend. How about that? That's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to put that one out there on like to ruin your Tuesday morning for people, is don't downplay this shit. And that's what Walter and I talk a lot about is don't give in to the message that you need to calm down. It was like another note that I said is history is written
Yeah.
mostly by the fact that men have consistently told women to calm down when the moment deserves that we dial it up. And I think we're
Yeah.
way past the moment, and we need to dial it up in peaceful and patriotic ways. So that was
Yeah.
my big note: was don't pay
Yeah.
the military privately.
One of the big stories that a big story to me is someone leaked the fact that CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott was at the meeting for the generals, the little pep rally they had.
Mm,
And they told me while he was there. And so I immediately started asking questions, tried to get a hold of Rodney Scott, couldn't. And I'm trying to find out why he's there. What is the head of the Border Patrol doing at a meeting with generals? There's a defined line here where that contact is not supposed to happen. And turns out he's over there politicking generals and trying to get them to buy into the White House's anti-immigrant raids and stuff. And
Huh.
obviously, generals have not taken them up on that. That's why they keep having to call the National Guard because, you know, the goal is to set up what I found out was the goal is to set up verbal agreements between Homeland Security and the DoD to run soldiers, and it's like that's not legal. You know what I mean? They can't do that.
Yeah.
And so far, no generals have bit, as far as I know, and I don't think any will because that's shady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not you don't run a government on handshake deals like that. And
No.
and that what everything that you just mentioned in your note, comes into play in that sort of a scenario. It's really scary to think that they want to essentially just erase the 10th Amendment, right? The separation of powers, law enforcement powers between the federal and the states. And they apparently don't give a damn about, every other freaking rule in the book that says you can't deploy US
Yep.
troops on US soil. And that's some really scary stuff. Like we're really getting into some dangerous
Yep.
territory here.
Well, think of all the
Yeah.
pressure they're under. The pressure that our generals, and I mean, we love and respect our generals, but they are daily under pressure from this administration to break the law. And so that's where we come in, where we have to speak these things out because we have to, bolster their ability to repel this and say, and remind them. I mean, Nuremberg defense should be trending every single day. We need to remind everybody in our government because they're feeling all this overwhelming pressure. Oh, just give up. You're following the law. You're just a stick in the mud. They're all these things they're saying. We got to say, heck no. Lawfully, you are good. Look at history. If you guys give up to this pressure and you do these illegal things. And so keep that in mind. I mean, all the people talking here, just keep bolstering people who are telling the truth and helping these groups that are they're on the front lines of this resistance. They need to know, be fortified all the time. They need to be constantly reminded. They're getting pressure from the other side. We have to counter that force, with our own pressure to say, you guys got to hold the line because ultimately you are going to be the ones who are going to suffer first. When the legal and peaceful consequences come, and they are coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that really strong statement there, I want to give Arturo you a minute to promote yourself and tell people where they can find you and how they can support you. Because we're right at the top of the hour. I have another show in half an hour that I want to take a quick break in between, um, where we're going to be talking about the naval fleet that is amassing in the Caribbean right now, with Melissa Corrigan. So tune in on Banner and Backbone for that, everybody. But Arturo, please promote yourself. How can people support you? What can people do to get your word out and your work out?
Well,
The floor is all yours.
yeah, no, on social media, it's easy. It's at Extreme Arturo. I use the same username everywhere, except for TikTok. I got banned there once, so it's Extreme dot Arturo. Um, but yeah, Extreme Arturo anywhere on social media, and my newsletter is free for everyone, supported by paid subscribers. I don't use paywalls and stuff. So yeah, if you guys want to support some free news, for people, best way to do that is become a paid subscriber, because it's like Marlon and I always say, misinformation is freely available, but facts are often behind paywalls. So
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah,
all of us at like writers and editors of color, I know Walter, a lot of us keep
Mhm.
our content free for that reason. So we really
absolutely.
rely on our paid subscribers. So subscribe.
Yes. And I highly encourage. Walter, what about you, my friend, um before we go too?
Yep. Oh, it's so great having Arturo here. I love it. Every single time I chat with Arturo, I know more. I feel more empowered. So thank you so much. Yes. Don't take food off your table, but if you can throw a tip our way, it helps so much. I've been thinking too, it's like the more we spread it out, the more that keeps us able to say the truth. I mean, if we had one person paying us, whatever they pay us, 20 grand, then we'd have to be beholden to that person. So like when you get a thousand people paying us 20 bucks, we're still able to say the truth. We're not bought by anybody, and that's just so important. So, and be discerning. There's people that are already millionaires on this platform. They don't need your 20 bucks. The three of us sure as hell do. So, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Arturo. I cannot wait to
Thanks,
speak with
man.
you again. It was
Yeah.
so fun to get to know or get to speak with you and get to know you today. Everyone, all on my subscriber chat, please subscribe to Arturo if you have not. Subscribe to Walter if you have not already. I don't know why you wouldn't have for Walter or Arturo. They're both amazing. They've been on a lot of great stuff with friends that I have, and they know each other well. Also, please subscribe to me on Sick of the Shit Publications. I'm doing a 50% off sale for the rest of the month. Trying to keep building up those numbers so I can continue to do this full time. Um, but the big thing is, as always, everybody, thank you for joining in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for contributing in the chat, pushing back on stupid people who shouldn't be in the chat and are saying dumb things. Thank you for asking meaningful questions to us, to those who do. And we appreciate every single one of you for being here. And as always, y'all, let's stop being sick of this shit and let's start doing this shit. I'll see y'all later. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye bye. Bye bye.